The following is a presentation of the St. Louis Chess Club.
Hello and welcome to our broadcast of the 2023 Spring Chess Classic. My name is Julian Proleiko and I'm joined by women's grandmaster Tatev Abrahamyan, and hopefully we'll have another exciting day of chess ahead of us.
Hello everyone and welcome. Yesterday was a great day of chess as we saw some very interesting battles. The game that we're really interested in was this game by Benjamin Bach, where he ended up winning in a really beautiful fashion of domination of bishop versus knight. And very much looking forward to looking through the games today. And before we get started, let's take a look at the standings and see where we are. And in Group A, we have a three-way tie for first place between Dariusz Swiercz, Christopher Yu, and Yasser Quesada. And we have with half a point behind, we have a pack of players: Sam Sevian, Illia Nyzhnyk, Benjamin Gledura, Daniel Dardha, and Benjamin Bach. And in Group B, we had a sole leader, but Akshat Chandra and Felix Blohberger right now are tied for first place, and we have Gergely Kantor, Jason Liang, who won his game, chasing the players with half a point, and at 50% we have three players: Viktor Mikhalevski, Dambasuren Batsuren, and Luka Budisavljevic.
So let's go ahead and look at the tournament format. They are playing game in 90 with a 30-second increment for the first 40 moves, and after move 40 they will get 30 minutes for the rest of the game, with, of course, a 30-second increment throughout the entire game. And the schedule is they will be playing every day with no rest days at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We will be live with you 3 hours after the start of the game every day until the end of the tournament.
And before we start looking at the games, let's take a look at the pairings and see what we have in store for today. So are there any games you're looking forward to looking at today, Julian?
Well, I'm definitely interested in the Christopher Yu game. Of course, Dariusz Swiercz is a leader. I believe Christopher Yu is as well. And every day Christopher is just looking for a fight. So that's definitely going to be interesting, I think.
So that is our key matchup of the day. So let's start with that game. And another game that I wanted to look at right after is the Benjamin Bach game. But let's start with this one. And immediately we see that Black is up a pawn. And the question is, where is White's compensation?
Well, that is a good question, yeah. I guess White has compensation in the form of the bishop against knight, but it's not great compensation, I guess.
So why do you say it's not a great compensation? Because we talk about this, the long-term potential of the bishop every day, but here, right, immediately, no.
So I think the difference is, in most positions there are pawns on both sides, and in this case there are pawns all on the same side, so it's harder to exploit the speed of the bishop versus the knight. But yeah, I mean, I think that White is better off having a bishop than not having a bishop. If this is why White's not just lost, I guess. It's having the bishop on c6.
Yeah, usually this very strong, which looks like a Catalan bishop. I think this came from a Catalan. It's unfortunately here it's aiming at nothing. Usually it aims at a pawn on b7. But here we see that this bishop is on this long diagonal, but there is nothing on the diagonal for it to be eyeing or attacking. So maybe temporarily there's this looseness for the knight, but immediately Black can connect this knight, and the piece is really well placed on d5. So I think White's way to fight here, try to trade everything and go into 4 versus 3 endgame, which is an interesting way of looking at things, because usually when we're down material the rule is don't trade, but here if I was able to just take everything off the board and just leave a rook for each side, then White should be able to draw that position. But with pieces on the board, and especially as this bishop gets stuck on this side of the board, maybe I can't even dream about of bringing my pieces to this side. Let's take a look and see how we got here. So we did see this position in the World Championship game today with h3, but h3 wasn't played. And g3, so we do have a Catalan with this bishop b4 check and a5. I believe this was the game that Mikhalevski played, and he said he wasn't ready for a5. but he ended up winning that game in the first round.
Yeah, these lines can become very sharp, and also they can become very positional. It's sort of like black's choice. You can play lines with b5 instead of b6. I think b6 is a more calm approach, but these b5 positions can get a little wild after a4, c6, and black tries to keep the material, but white does have a lot of compensation for his missing pawn.
And in the game, b6 was played with the idea of defending the bishop from this side, and black saves the pawn anyways. Because if black doesn't save the pawn, then it's just too many concessions, right? Because I just get the center, I get the pawn back, white will just get everything they ever wanted.
Yeah, I think it might be worth pointing out if white were to castle instead of playing the move a3, I think black's point was if queen c4, then black has this bishop a6 idea, which is thematic in a lot of Catalan positions. And e2 is hanging.
But in the game, a3 was played, so the bishops come off, so b5, black has to hang on to this pawn. And then black's main idea is to just hang on to this pawn and claim that they have a pawn for this bad bishop that they're going to... So black has to endure some kind of suffering in this position, because white will have a nice center, and there's this problem of the c8 bishop and lack of space, but a pawn is a pawn, and a lot of times black can just stay up a pawn. So b3 is played, and then the problem is with this c5 square. So castles, bishop a6, a takes b5.
Oh, that's an interesting decision. Yeah, these sorts of positions, I've seen these sorts of positions maybe from different lines, but I think white typically tries to just play with knights on e5 and c5 without changing the structure and hope that black takes on a4 and you can play against the c6 and a5 pawns. So a takes b5 is, I guess, very concrete.
And after bishop b5, the bishop, it's pretty funny here, because at some point he will also, as we will see in the game, he plays a4. So we have a bishop between these two pawns, but the bishop actually very comfortably defends both of the pawns. And if something like knight c5, then trades, and black's passed pawn can actually become very dangerous even if they lose c6. So I think black's position is already quite comfortable. But a4, the knight went to d2. So he took on e2. What the idea is giving up e2 to take on c6. But once the e2 pawn is gone, this d4 pawn is quite lonely. And as we saw in the game in the final position, this pawn did fall. So we will see how. So bishop goes to b5, knight takes on c6. Now black has, okay, I was thinking black has to take immediately, but rook c8 is nice. And takes on a4, wow. And this is very tactical. With the idea, if you take, I take, my knight is hanging, but so is your bishop. And again, black should have a bit of an edge playing against an isolated pawn, but too many trades have happened at this point. So instead, after queen a4, bishop took on c6, knight b6, and we see how the pawn fell. Rook d1, so now the knight is threatening to jump to e4. Actually, I think this is quite a serious threat. So knight went to d5. And this is the position. Actually, this is the last position we saw, and knight bd5 was played. And this is a move we were predicting.
Yeah, so can knight e4 be played right now, or is there some tactical problem with that move?
So now I wanted to go queen e5 will run into
simplification.
Yeah, and giving up a pawn. So I cannot go to e5. I think my queen only has... see if I hold the queen, it tells me all the legal moves. But I think I only have... I can go to b6. No, b6.
Yeah, I think
b6 actually might...
I'm surprised you don't lose because... Oh, you have rook c6 at the end because rook d5 you can take on c6 with a piece.
I wanted to be clever here and force a draw, but you can just go king h8. Just wanted to end this game in a draw. Okay, so knight e4, I have to go to... Yeah, this looks a bit suspicious. I don't want to allow this.
Right. The knight on d5 is a little overworked, and maybe Like, even the rook endgame might not be so bad anymore. This 4v3 doesn't feel as dangerous as a normal 4v3.
Yeah, and we will put a rook on f4. I think good chances for white. And so instead of queen b6, where are we? Rook a1. Wait, no, knight b5 actually wasn't played. I just realized that this was our old analysis. So I have to keep remembering that the red square is the move. Okay. So if knight b5, which I think is a very logical move, maybe the other one is to move the queen, because knight e4 is actually, like, if I pause the move, knight e4 looks like a serious threat.
Yeah. I'm not sure where you go to protect b6. I guess you have to play queen c4. That's probably it, right? Because c4 and c6 are hanging, so it must be queen c6 and like rook c6 and maybe, or queen c6. I don't think black has very good chances. So rook c6.
Maybe I thought maybe I can come this way.
Yeah.
And
like
play against your compromised king.
Yeah, like king g7. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I think white has good chances.
Yeah, I don't think we want to allow this knight f6 gf.
Yeah.
So instead, I think knight bd5. Oops, what am I doing? Knight bd5.
Yeah, instead of
Can I move?
Yeah, we passed, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay. So I think this is my only move, right? This is the only square I can go to, with the idea of queen c7 kicking this away. Actually, knight e4 is a huge threat because there will be a fork on c3. So white will have to probably have to take something, right? I don't know if you want to give up this bishop, because all of a sudden your king looks a bit vulnerable, although I don't see how I can go after it.
Right. The also, I think when you're down material in these sorts of defensive positions, you want the opposite piece. So like, I think knight f6 might be a better try with him, like bishop f3 or something, or bishop g2.
You're afraid of this?
Yeah, I just wanted to guard the g4 square, but maybe it wasn't that important. Rook c2 is also, yeah.
But there's no threat, so maybe we need to defend the second rank. And now, then I will bring the bishop back.
Get everything.
Yeah. Oh, h4, h5, h4 is possible, maybe.
But definitely black is for choice, up a pawn, and if black trades the rooks, which I think black wants to do, then you can have queen and knight against queen and bishop, which I think is a good combination to have.
And another game I wanted to look at is the game between Quesada Perez and Benjamin Bach. And the reason I wanted to look at it is because there's three pieces versus queen, and this is not a dynamic we see very often. So at first glance, the first thing that stands out to me is the rook on a6, which looks very out of the game. But let's see what is going on in this position and who is for choice here. What do you think?
Well, unfortunately for me, I just see the evaluation bar, so immediately that brings my attention to, it gives me the preference for black. But I think even without the bar, I like black's position because the bishops are staring at the center, and we're about to break through. And it's not entirely clear how white is going to make progress with his queen against black's king.
So what was the last move? So the last move, the bishop went to. So the rook went on a6, and to me the rook on a6, unless he wants to take on b6 for a very concrete reason, rook on a6 looks very out of the game. Maybe the rook needs to be here to defend this pawn. Yeah. So he played rook a6 and bishop c6, and now he cannot move this pawn, and he cannot move this pawn because of this pin. Because I would like to play maybe something like this, but I can't.
To be honest with you, I think that like white's position is statically bad. Like almost if you put white's pieces anywhere, I mean not literally anywhere. Maybe you could figure some way to checkmate me, but I just like the two bishops when you have the three pieces for the queen. I think the best combination is two bishops and a knight as opposed to two knights and a bishop.
Yeah, two bishops, especially when your bishops have outposts. So the bishop on b6 has an outpost, and bishop on can go to b7 where it will be defended. So when we evaluate this kind of imbalances of queen versus anything, queen versus two rooks, queen versus three pieces, the first thing we'll look at is king safety. And if the king is unsafe, the queen is quite powerful. And here actually black's king does look unsafe, but it's surrounded by its pieces, so there is no way to get to it. And the fact that white doesn't have a minor piece, so if white had a dark square bishop, and black had another knight, this would be a completely different story. But unfortunately, white is only playing with the heavy pieces. And another thing that we have to consider is the quality of the pieces, and then if the pieces can be on secured squares. Because if the minors constantly get kicked around by the rooks, then their quality is not as good. But here, these are very strong bishops.
Yeah, I think king safety is definitely the #1 concern when it's queen versus anything. I played a very interesting game against Talia, which I probably should have lost, where she had queen and 4 pawns for a rook and 3 pieces, which seems like a lot, but my king was unbelievably weak. So it was just dead lost, so she won a piece back, and then I had a rook. I had a rook and 2 pieces for a queen and 2 pawns, and I was suffering the entire game, and somehow managed to draw.
Wait, rook and 2 pieces. Is that the one where you had... No, that's not your game. That was someone else's game. It was, I remember this like amazing fortress.
It was eventually a fortress, but maybe not my game.
I've had queen versus 3 pieces against Clarissa in 2019 US Championship, but my queen was very strong, and it just kind of captured all her pieces because her pieces just didn't have any squares. But let's see how we got here. So let's go back. So we see a Spanish, and we see an... So this looks like a Arkhangelsk, some kind of a transposition, right? Even though the pawn is on d3. So bishop g5. Again, I never really cared much about this bishop g5 lines.
I don't know what your opinion on this is, but I always thought that the archangles, when white plays d3, is supposed to be not as dangerous if the bishop's on c8 versus b7. So why did white choose this specific move order, in your opinion?
Maybe he was avoiding something, or he had a very specific preparation. I mean, people don't always want to play open Spanish. There's so many lines to know. I always played with d3 because I just never learned open Spanish. So maybe he's avoiding something.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a possibility.
That's the downside, I guess, of playing d3 here instead of castling.
Yeah, d3 does give black a lot of options, because if you're castling, then you're ready for this take on c6 lines, for this lines. Kind of doesn't give black as much flexibility, but d3 does make, I think, maybe life a bit easier for black in some sense. So bishop c5 is played. So a4, the rook has to go on b8. And bishop g5, and I think this is a critical moment. So this position has been played several times at the higher level. So I see Ivanchuk has played it, Alexeyev has played it. So h6 and knight g5, very thematic sacrifice. Doesn't work out very often. And the idea for white is to be able to play a 4, or at least put some kind of pressure. So knight c3, knight d5 is not possible.
Yeah, I think people's opinion of these sorts of sacrifices change over time. Like when you're pretty low rated, you think, oh, well, I just won a piece, so you shouldn't sacrifice a piece for 2 pawns. And then you get a little higher rated and you're like, oh, well, black's king is weak, I'm probably just going to checkmate him. You get higher rated, you're like, oh, I'm up a piece again. And then eventually you're like, I think it's equal.
It depends how much you analyze with a computer, too. And king g7, queen f3, rook h8, bishop d5, and b4. So this is actually kind of funny, because white is just kind of playing down a piece, like not a big deal. But the idea is for this knight to somehow land on d5. This is a long term idea. And we actually have a couple of games in this line that have been played. So this whole line, that queen e7, the knight goes to c2. So I think already black is afraid of knight e3. And for black, it's I'm starting to think that the big downside is that black just doesn't have too many useful moves and doesn't really have a way of getting out of this pin. Because if you go here, I will simply play h4, and this did not really help you. And the knight is still headed to knight e3. So let's say, okay, if I just pass the move and you go knight e3, my whole point is you can never take, because this just helps me.
Yeah, this is just game over.
So this idea of knight e3, this long-term idea. It's either, I don't think you want to take on c6, probably move back and put a knight on d5, or actually knight e3, take on c6, distract this bishop on knight g4. That looks very strong. So a very long-term idea, but very hard to deal with. So black already has to sense the danger, which is why he took on d5. So now white has to take, because this runs into
a queen g5.
queen g5, and there has to be something very bad here.
I don't know. I think you can just play like even bishop e6 or something. I think that white's position is just statically again like really bad. We have two bishops, and is black's king really weak? The rook on b8 is probably going to go to like g8, or we can double on the h file. I think maybe white's the one that's getting in trouble with his king.
Yeah, a piece is a piece, and I think you only have 2 pawns, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
yeah.
6, 7. So it's not even enough material. So 2 bishops in this kind of positions look devastating, which is why after knight d5, white took, takes back. So now this is how we got queen versus 3 pieces. So d4, rook h6. So it looks like white is doing well here. The rook wants to cover the king.
Oh wow! So I just saw the bar drop. Queen g3 was that big of a mistake.
So just invites this rook into the game.
So what should white have done?
Knight e3 I don't think is a possibility, because you just take... the question is, what do I want to do with this center? Do I want to keep it like this? Do I want to push? Do I want to take? I think I don't want to take. I think this should just only help you.
Yeah, the bishop on b6 will become a monster anytime the d-pawn moves.
I think like tactically this actually might become a problem, because once you play rook h8, I may not be able to hang on to this pawn, because h3 might run into sacrifices.
Yeah, and because of the bishop on b6, you might even just get checkmated. There will be no f3 defense. Rook h1 will come with mate. Can we try maybe like queen e3?
Without the check?
Right, without the check.
So
I want to play f4, but maybe even here f4, because if you take on h2, I was thinking I could maybe give away my queen.
Oh, you wanted to do this?
But it really hates the way that I play. I am giving up a lot of pawns.
Because now I just have 2 pieces. Because you had 2 pawns, right? You had queen and 2 pawns for 3 pieces, and now I just have 2 pieces for rook, and I still have 2 bishops. I don't know which way I want to take. Probably this. This is a huge target for me.
Yeah, 2 bishops usually just destroy a rook.
Yeah, 2 bishops are too strong here. So what do we need to do? So h3 here, can you sacrifice? And what?
Oh, rook a8, yeah. But knight g6, and even this is practically very hard to deal with, even if objectively it's equal.
Not there? Can I mate?
Trying to mate me.
Yeah, this looks... I don't know what this looks like.
Very
Hard to
sharp.
evaluate this position, but okay, we didn't have to sacrifice on h3, maybe knight g6. It's more normal. I'm gonna place a knight on f4 and then take on h3.
Yeah, when you did that with white, it looked like a really good idea. Maybe, maybe we should do that with black.
Because if you go here, I can just kick you away, right? Because the idea, like, you got this tempo with queen g5, and I'm going to prevent it. I mean, this attack looks quite strong. So what should we do here? Okay, do we wanna close this position and ask this knight where it's going? So you're forced to go to d8, which is sort of an achievement for me. Well, if you go to d8, I can claim 2 things, right? That your knight on d8 is just very bad, and your rook cannot go to h8. So now maybe I can go something like, something like what?
I think no matter what you do as black, I'd like to play f6 followed by knight f7, because the knight on d8 doesn't leave a very good impression. I definitely want to improve that piece.
That's a fair point. So you want to go to f6, and I wanted to... I had some kind of an idea, but... So you will play bishop d4, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to give me a bishop. Now I'm going to wonder why I made all these moves. I'm not on time.
Yes.
Because I wanted to do something like this, but I'm a bit worried here. I'm not sure I'm achieving anything. I think you might just...
Yeah, I might be able
wait.
to take and play rook d8.
No, rook d8 doesn't have a move.
Oh. Yeah, that's a nice idea.
I mean, I just stumbled into it.
Maybe after rook c7, I have the move knight g5. And then when you move your queen, then I play rook d8.
Yeah, you just have too many pieces. And now you have 4 pieces for a queen. So maybe you can even give one up at some point.
Yeah, somehow it feels practically very hard to play with white, even if objectively, like I see the bar, it says that white has some advantage, maybe even a winning advantage. But I don't know, playing with the pieces, like once the pieces start to coordinate, you have to be very careful with the queen if you don't have an attack.
Then maybe I need to come and take this bishop and... So let's say I go rook here, you want to go f6.
Mm-hmm.
So I go here, you go here.
Yeah, knight f7.
So I take.
Okay. So if I play...
If you go knight g5, I think I will take here.
Right.
So you have to take...
I'm not even sure, probably with the rook, just not because I'm afraid of doubling my pawns, but because I'm afraid of rook a7 coming and skewering my entire 7th rank.
Yeah, you have a lot of...
things there. Maybe I'm just skewered anyway.
But let's try the line that we had before, because it was very similar, right? You went knight g5, and now queen goes somewhere.
Yeah, you're just threatening h4 and rook d7. Maybe this, yeah. I think we found the reason why white is doing so well. This rook a6, rook b6 idea, but it was very nice.
Well, I mean, I set the rook on a6 in the game, and I figured there has to be a reason, right? It's not such a strong player, so, because it kind of looks silly to me. So I figured that's the reason maybe you have to take this bishop, because it's kind of a very strange thing, right? You need to sacrifice this bishop here, sacrifice your rook for this bishop rather, which is difficult to do because you already don't have a lot of pieces to play with, and you're sacrificing something else.
The whole reason to do it is to just make sure that black's 7th rank is so weak. Like concretely, if black is allowed to consolidate, like put the knight on c6 on g6 or something, I think white's in trouble. But yeah, white's probably just on time. This d5 rook a6 thing is very nice.
But I think d5 is a difficult move to play, and for us, it's easy to think of this move because, well, one, it's not our game, and two, we saw what happened in the game, right? Because in the game, as we see, queen g3 was played, and after this, we see this dynamic and how dangerous it is. And the reason he's playing f4 is because what is coming, actually? Rook h6 is a threat, followed by knight g6. There's already a lot of pressure. So f4 is a bit of an ambitious move. So takes and knight d4. And apparently knight d4 is not a very good move. And I think I see why knight d4 is not a good move, because if I look at these knights, these are called superfluous knights. They're both fighting for the same square. So both knights want to be on c6, but only one can be. But this trade, which feels like a good trade for white, because your knight on c2 just kind of looks silly. But at the same time, it allows this other piece coming to the game, and it takes the defense away. So if we think about it, if I compare this position, where knight c6 actually wasn't played, bishop c6 was played. But if I compare this position to, where are we? To this position, or even this position, it wasn't, like, you didn't trade this knight for this knight, right? You traded this knight for this one.
Right.
And this is a favorable trade for black. So again, during the game, making this kind of decision is very difficult. Once the bar drops up and down, we can draw our own conclusions. But here I can understand why c takes d4 is better, because now black has to figure out where to do with this knight. And f5 is actually maybe already a move. f5, f6 is a possibility. If I've passed the move somehow, very difficult to pass a move here actually.
Yeah.
Okay, let me pass it like this. I think this is already a huge threat, right? Because something like this.
Oh, you're just going to checkmate me?
I hope so.
Yeah, queen g5 and queen f6, yeah. f7 is not defended by anything.
So there's actually a threat in the position. So keeping the knights on, even though this knight looks very bad, is useful for white, but I can completely understand knight d4. So takes and f5. f5 is a very nice move because black is so happy to do this. First of all, this pawn is hanging, but also the knight on f5 just sits there beautifully.
Yeah, actually, yeah, there might be some tactic like ef, knight f5. If you go like queen d2, then bishop d4, king h1, rook h2, I think is checkmate because the knight conveniently controls the g3 square.
Yeah, this is a really thematic checkmate.
Yeah, so while Yasser is suffering with the position, why don't we go ahead and take a look at the B pairings?
Yeah, let's take a look at what we have in Group B. And as we said, we had two players tied for first place. And we actually have those two players playing each other, Akshat Chandra versus Felix Blohberger. And let's take a look at what we have in that game. So Akshat coming back with a win. We saw that 2 rounds ago he didn't win against Kantor, but yesterday he did win his game. So let's take a look at where we are. So what is your impression in this position?
So
very brave king.
Yeah, the first thing that sort of stands out to me is the bishop on c3 doesn't have very many squares. But yeah, it looks wild. I'm not sure who I would prefer. Knee-jerk reaction, probably black, because I like the space and I think white's pieces are a little awkward. But on the other hand, if white activates his bishop somehow, the king on g6 might be a little weak.
It's hard to see how black will activate their pieces. I'm actually wondering if we will see a repetition. Because let me see the last few moves. Bishop went here, bishop went to d4, king activates. So the queen can move. So now c5 is a move.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes back to attack a5 and queen d8. So d4 is a huge threat. So white has to deal with this. So I don't think you want to do something like this and then your bishop gets locked in. So I think bishop d4 is a logical move. Question is if black wants to play b6 with the idea of c5 and try to force white to give up this bishop.
Yeah, I wonder if can white try the move rook e1? Because if you play the move c5, that does weaken your d5 pawn. So yeah, if I take this, then what is this opposite color bishop endgame with queens on the board?
So I don't think I can allow this. I think this is already...
Yeah, queen f7, bishop f5 would be nice for me.
So tactically already. So here actually I probably will have to take on f6. But yeah, I mean weakening, and if you somehow force me to put a pawn on d4, then all of a sudden I put all my pawns on the dark squares and my bishop cannot move. But even this looks very close to equal to me. But
right.
No, rook e1 is a very logical move. I don't think black wants to play b6. I think he went queen e7 with the queen d8 with a very concrete threat of d4 and also defending his pawn.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't want to play b6 here. So b6 will run into rook e1 as well. Right. So he just played queen d8 to...
Wait, so Akshat made a move.
It looks like he captured something.
Yeah, it looks...
Oh, he took on f6. Unprovoked. I wonder why.
Okay, that seems like a strange decision to me because I kind of like black's activity here. Without the pawn being on c5, the d5 pawn doesn't feel that weak, and I mean the king can be weak on g6, of course, but it can also be active.
This looks a bit like a draw offer to me. You know, like I'm exchanging, and next I will want to play rook e1 and go into this opposite color bishop position. So maybe he didn't like his position already. I wonder why he rejected bishop d4. Because I don't think in this position that we have, let me promote this so I don't get lost here, that I think black is the one for choice here, because this king on g6 is actually, like this whole formation is actually quite favorable for black. I think I can start attacking here, just pushing this pawn. This can be pretty annoying. Like if I go h5, h4, g4, f4.
Yeah, it's definitely
pretty annoying.
Definitely white the one who has to prove something here.
Then I can put a rook on e4. You have to go c3. this, so it's not like my a5 pawn was going to become a problem. So bishop f6 is a bit committal. I think bishop d4, threatening, quote unquote, rook e1. Like if I'm going to take on f6, at least I want to have my rook on e1 already. I think this would have made more sense. And as I mentioned, this is also a possible repetition here.
Right. I was even thinking maybe black could play for a win in this position, but it seems unlikely because no matter what, you're playing rook e1, right?
For moving rook e1, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to play rook e1 because you have a rook on the open files. It's like very basic chess, right? There's one open file on the board. Only one pair of pawns have come off. And black has a rook on that open file and it's unchallenged. So very basic chess principle tells us that we need to challenge the rook on an open file because our own rook is not doing anything.
Yeah. So while they are figuring this endgame out, do you want to take a look at the other games in the section?
Sure. Let's take a look at Gergely's game. So, oh wow. How did this king get here? So we're already on move 42. Wow, so a lot of moves have been played in this game. So Gergely Kantor versus Jason Liang. So Jason Liang also won his game yesterday. He had that opposite color bishop endgame we were looking at with that passed c-pawn, and eventually he went on to win that. And now this position looks amazing for black. That's my first reaction. I haven't even counted pawns. This king on e4 is just such a monster. This bishop on d2,
Versus
very classical, right?
Yeah, octopus on d5.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah. I call any good knight an octopus because, not a knight anymore. It controls all the important squares.
And unfortunately, this bishop is completely controlled. And two connected passed pawns. This pawn won't go far. So this pawn is already hanging. Can I already take this guy? I don't think I will ever get mated here, so it's not something I have to worry about. So for you to mate me, you have to play here, reroute this bishop, reroute some rooks.
I almost
very unlikely.
don't even want to do that just because the pawn on d4 feels so useless. Like the pawn does kind of prevent your rooks from coming in the future. So yeah, I'm thinking maybe b3, something to that effect, with the idea of like king d3, king c2 even in the future.
Maybe we can start with king d3.
Oh,
how do you defend this?
King d3 feels like a really nice move.
Bishop e1 looks very sad. But here it might actually threaten king f3. And like if I go here, I think I might get... How do you stop mate? No, it's not mate. That's how.
I prevented it.
No, but if you push your pawn, is this... This is actually something, right?
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah, that would be a very unfortunate way to lose for black.
Like a self-mate.
Yeah, king activity can turn into being in danger very fast.
I just realized the king just came from d3. If I go back, the king came from this side. I kind of figured the king came from here, but now I'm realizing there's no possible way for the king come from this side. So this makes more sense. So he went here. Check, attack the bishop went back, he went here and he just repeated, and rook c6 played. So he stops this pawn. So how is black eventually going to win this? So actually, what is the pawn count? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So pawn count is equal, but this pawn is ours, right? There's no way to ever defend this, so we can take it whenever.
Anytime we want, yeah.
So it's this pawn actually. So we can choose. But
maybe both.
But it doesn't feel like this is going to be the decisive advantage for black. It feels like it should be this pawns. Okay, I need to find a move in this position. So let's say if I go here.
Okay.
So maybe you can take.
Maybe now, yeah. Now that c5 is hanging, taking d4.
Now I don't have this because now you just literally collected all my pawns. Okay, I need to find a move with white, and I think this is the difficult task for me. Maybe I need to... This is very unfortunate. This runs into king d3.
He played rook d1 in the game.
Okay.
I guess his idea is that he didn't want black to take on d4 yet. Bishop b4 check would be a discovery.
Very nice. Okay. So what does... So maybe white, so black can actually maybe zugzwang. Or do I have king e2? So let's say I pass the move. Well, I have to be careful.
So
no, I don't have to
I
be
was
careful.
thinking maybe black would try knight e7
Where are you going?
to f5.
Ah, you want to take this way.
No, immediately. Bad move.
Ah.
Oh, I hum my b4
Yeah, this is,
pawn.
I spotted this when I wanted to wait. I wanted to go rook a7, and then I thought before is hanging, and I was like, no, the knight is there. So the knight cannot move. So what do we want to do? So let me promote this. So how do we win this with white? What do we do? We can, with black. How do we win this with black?
Yeah, actually, I just realized that this discovery is very very loose. Like king d3, bishop b4, king c2. You have to play king d3, bishop b4, king c2. You have to play rook d2, I believe, not to lose a piece. And then, yeah, like everything is somehow defended. Wait, maybe I can go rook c a6 and everything is trapped.
So I have to trade, and wow, what a way to trap a bishop. We don't see a bishop get trapped very often. It's not easy to trap a pointy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is a very unusual pattern. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
I went back and then I lost where I came from. Okay,
So-
we're looking at king d3.
So maybe not king d4, but king d3 is an interesting way to try to play for a win.
And if I change the move order and I go here, here, take.
Yeah, this isn't as good.
And here, rook a2, but no, I don't have it.
If anything, we're
Here
probably
you
in
have
danger now. Yeah.
this very annoying move, and then this runs into bishop c3. It's a
Yeah,
very
for-
unfortunate way
for-
to lose the game.
For a second, I thought about something very silly. I was
Oh
like,
no!
I thought knight c3 check at the end, forking the king and rook, which
Oh.
is true, but it was my own king.
This is where. Oh, very nice. Okay, so let's go back to our position after rook d1, and so let's say we pass the move, and maybe we need to pass the move in a. Maybe I need to play here so my rooks are defended.
Mhm.
So we're not blundering bishop b4, and let's say white goes here. Actually, I don't like this move because now I cannot push my pawn. I cannot put a rook behind it. What if I go this way? So you make a move and I push. Is this hanging? I don't think this is hanging. So if you take,
Yeah, just rook a8, right?
and then you have to go back, and I
Then
come
rook
here.
a2, yeah.
And now I'm threatening knight c3. If you go back, this is this over? Yeah, this is just rook a1. And I don't see a move here. Because knight c3 is a threat, and b2 with rook a1 is a threat.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is just game over.
Yeah. And knight f4 is also a threat in addition to all of those things.
Yeah, this is just too many threats to deal with. Oh, so this actually was played.
Nice.
Rook c8. See, it's nice when you can move a few moves in a row until you find a good move that you're like, oh, this makes sense. Yeah, this is actually quite a flexible move, and what I like about it, that it connects the rooks. So the rooks defend each other, which makes my knight very flexible. And my idea is to start pushing this pawn, and from here I can put the rook behind it. So I need the assistance of my rook to promote this pawn. So I actually really like this move. And because on c6, so actually this is a very nice maneuver for black. He just goes rook c6. I guess he could have done it rook c8, rook a8, but I like this because he stops the pawn.
Mm-hmm.
The rook moves away, and now he goes back. So now someone can go on b8. This pawn cannot move because my rook is here, and also in general I don't think he can move it too much because it will just get captured.
So it seems Jason is playing very accurately in this position, and Kantor, just a disastrous last 2 rounds for him. He had a very nice save against Akshat, but his last 2 rounds were not very easy for him. Why don't we go ahead and take a look at what the players are playing for? So in the A group, first place is $6,000, second is $4,000, and third is $3,000 with a total prize fund of $22,000. They are playing for quite a bit of money. And in the B group, first place is $4,000, $2,500, $2,000 with a total prize fund of $14,000, which is definitely no small change.
And as you were telling us what the players are playing for, I went back to Group A to this game between Quesada and Benjamin Bach, and we see things have changed, and now Black has still 3 pieces for the queen, but now it's a rook on 2 pieces. So it's I was about to say monetary, but piece-wise, this is a better point-wise better advantage for Black because a rook is worth more than the minors. But at least we see this b6 bishop has come off the board. So let's see how we got here. So we left off somewhere around here. So this happened, f5. This is something we saw. So the rook went on e6. And eventually, of course, this rook sacrificed itself. Rook g3. So this was whole idea behind rook f3 to get rid of one of these attackers, to fend off this attack somehow. Knight d5, very annoying move. Queen goes to d2 and simply wants to start collecting everything, and eventually Yasser Quesada decides that just cannot deal with all these pieces, aiming at this king, and gets rid of one of them. And now at least he gets some kind of counterplay via c6.
I've just received news that apparently Sevian is there's a lot of action going on in the Sevian game.
We will go right there once we see the final position, and queen takes on b6. Next, the queen will take this, and still should be an advantage for Black, but actually if the rook goes to c2, this actually might be entering checkmate territory. So we'll come back to this game, but let's take a look at that game. Oh wow, what is going on here? So queen f6 would be mate, but there is a rook on b6. How did this happen? This is such a funny pawn structure.
e4 and d4 well supported.
Yeah, this is like an ideal center, right? You have 2 pawns in the center, and then you have 2 pawns supporting it. So what is the material? 1, 2, 3, 4.
This probably came from a Grunfeld, right? That's what I would guess. I have no idea. Of course, my
so 4 knights
was not correct.
I have seen this line before, and at some point f3 is played because you don't want to place this. This really weakens the structure. So instead f4, f3 gets played. We need to take this pawn. And okay, we see how we got this part. So king goes to defend the pawn. And king e2. It's a very, very funny game by White so far. King on. This is really interesting, right? This is everything we'll learn not to do. King on in the center on an open file, but there's just no way to get to it. There's rook e8 and rook e1, which is a very clever way of defending, because if you take, takes, and king f1.
There's no defense to the rook on e8.
Backwards king move, right? It's so funny. Because we talk about backwards moves in chess and how difficult they are to spot, backwards knight moves. But backwards king move is not a tactical sequence we're familiar with. So the knight went back, the king goes to safety. Okay, so now we're going to see. And we got this pawn structure. Oh, this position looks very dangerous for Black, because as White, I have a compromised king, but there's just no way to get to my king because White just has such a lock on the center, and the queen can go to g2 to stop any kind of queen h3 checks, and the center is great. 2 bishops, open file, and I also have to mention that the endgames are also really bad for Black because of the 2 bishops versus 2 knights.
Yeah, I think the endgames might be even worse than the current position. I think if you traded queens here, Black would be without very much hope of any sort of counterplay, whereas here he can sort of dream that one day he can generate an attack against the white king. White moved his king around a lot in the opening, but one of the opening principles is to control the center, and White has done a great job of following that principle.
So rook goes to e2, and now we see an attack is coming. And it's funny because he's also not developing this bishop, but the bishop doesn't really have a square it can go to where I can claim that it's better than on c1. So now the knight goes back, and I see a very lonely king here with no defenders, and white just goes for the attack. Bishop h6, very good way to develop this king. This bishop immediately attacking g7, so g6 is forced. But without dark squared bishops, without black dark squared bishop, this is very weak, as we saw in the final position. So black is trying to create some kind of counterplay, and h4. h5, very typical against the structure. So if white manages to do this and take on g6, will be devastating. Rook e1, very logical move. So we're trading. The bishop goes to e2, so he brings a defender. But now another attacker is coming. And the problem is, for black, is both of your defensive pieces are completely on the other side of the board. And unfortunately, they're knights, which means they're not coming back anytime soon. It's very difficult for knights to move from one side of the board to the other. Just takes too many moves, and sometimes they just get trapped. Knights are very awkward pieces, as Sam learned yesterday. So again, he's in a different kind of position, but he has a knight versus bishop where his knights are getting dominated. Yesterday it was an endgame, today is a middle game.
Yeah, the issue for black is you're not even up anything. Like white has this very strong attack, and it's not clear what your we think of compensation as for like material, but there's not a lot of compensation for white's attack here. Like what is black really doing on the queen side right now?
Yeah, usually when you're suffering this much, at least you have a pawn, right? You're like, okay,
right, yeah.
At least I'm suffering for something. Here you're just suffering. So in the game, rook c1 was played, doesn't want to give up a pawn. So if I take this way, you have to take this way, right? Because this is just...
Yeah, rook h1 seems...
This is just mate.
Yeah.
So you have to take this way, which also gives white this passed pawn. I mean, the position is very bad, but h6, g6 is quite committal. There is no reason to do that. Maybe we can start with... so if I go here and you take, do I have mate? Well, I suppose I can do this. But
Yeah.
I also don't know if I want my bishop on f6.
Can we change the order of that? Can we go d5 first and then bishop f6? Like if your rook goes like somewhere that's not the 6th, it probably goes to b6. Then bishop f6 becomes a lot stronger.
Yeah, now we have ideas of moving this bishop back and...
Yeah, and also I mean that looks really good.
No, these knights are quite sad. I mean, the knight on a5 is actually just completely dominated, right? Just doesn't have a legal square where it won't be captured, and the knight can start coming back, but won't be going too far. But let's see what happened in the game. Rook c1 was played. Right, they're making moves. Rook b6, bishop h6, and knight b2, and wait, some trades happened. He took on h5?
Wow.
No. Wait.
This position is way different than what's on the screen.
Where is the queen?
That is a good question.
So what could have possibly happened here? So where is black's rook?
So I see a rook on f6 and bishop on h6 forming a mating net against black's king. But...
there's a rook on f6. So they're going to some kind of a king and pawn endgame. So I see knight on a5. So we're not getting updates. So let me go to another game and come back and see if we get updates. No, this is the position.
So disappointing that the DGT might be having an error right now.
So let's think about how we could have gotten to this position. So this somehow got traded. So somehow he sacrificed the queen.
Black has a pawn on h4 somehow.
So he took on h5 and then pushed h4.
But white has a pawn on h5 also.
Oh, well, that's interesting. No, so our DGT for some reason is not updating, but the bar is telling us the position is completely winning. Hopefully we get the moves soon. Maybe if we get a close shot of the board, we can kind of figure out what's going on. So he played, so we're gonna get some kind of a I think white still has a bishop, so we're about to get some kind of a bishop versus knight endgame. So I'm actually really curious how this pawn landed on h4. Did he go g5 at some point? Did he capture something?
Sam must have found some resource to get out of that massive attack.
I mean, I would imagine he took on h5 and put a rook on g6 somehow, and the queen was sacrificed, but I don't know how white still has a pawn on h5.
So, assuming there's a bishop on e2, which I kind of assume is the case, otherwise, I think white would be a lot less happy with this position. Maybe the queen just dominated, and we can try to win slowly with like bishop d3, f5, e6.
So I'm trying to figure out. So there's a pawn on e5, so I want e5, so then that goes to c4. And so what happened?
Yeah, I think I can make out most of the position. I think the structure is the same, but we...
Ah, you want f4.
Okay.
Right? This is the only thing that makes sense to me.
Yeah, somehow we traded our queen for black's knight on c4 and rook on f6, and we got our rook to f6 while taking away the f and g pawns, while the g pawn became an h pawn. And yeah, I mean, this position also looks pretty lost for black, I think.
And the problem is in the position we have, white doesn't have to play rook f8 immediately. He pushes a pawn. Ah, maybe he's actually sacrificed the bishop and his pawns are queening. Wait, black also has a passed pawn. What is going on? The pawn is on c5 somehow. Okay.
Yeah, maybe
Okay.
we'll return to this
There is
game
no way I
when
can figure so much out.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. It's a, what is it called? Like regressive chess? When you have a position, you have to figure out how you get there.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at what we have in the other games. So this position, we don't have any updates. This game versus Quesada Perez and Benjamin Bog. And Christopher Yu versus Daro. So now we have an endgame of rook and knight versus rook bishop, 4 versus 3. And eventually this rook will probably go here and offer an exchange. But black, I think, can try to press this for a long time. I think this gives white some good chances.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. Would you play the move rook e2 and allow a rook trade? Because I would be unsure about this decision.
I mean, I would be unsure too, but if I would play it, that's a different question. Oh, actually, we reached move 40, so I think this is going to be a long thing. So you think having rooks favors white?
I'm not sure, because on the one hand, no, because the rook on the second is very annoying and targets f2. But on the other hand, if I trade my bishop for your knight now, I'm probably just losing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the previous position, if I trade my bishop for your knight, I'm ecstatic.
That makes sense. Is there a threat in this position? Is knight g4 is not a move? So white has to find a move, because I think if I move my rook f5, now knight g4 is a threat.
Yeah.
And now, actually, you cannot challenge me here, right? Now you don't have rook e4 anymore, so you have to defend something like this, and this looks a bit awkward already. This looks like a bit of a concession. So I don't necessarily have to play rook e2, but I do have to make a move.
Like maybe bishop e2, with the idea of going rook e3 or something to that effect.
So if I, let's say, pass, you just wait.
I just want to wait and
That
see.
makes sense. Maybe I can come this way. But then you can move your bishop. If I'm not threatening the f2 pawn, right?
Yeah, like the square I care the most about is knight g4. I think the other squares I'm more than happy to let you be on.
So let's see how we got here. Where did we left off a long time ago, right? We left off somewhere around. So we saw all of this, we saw knight d5, this was, and queen b4. Oh, for some reason we thought queen a7 is the only move. We missed queen b4. And a Liang g takes f6. And I think the reason we're wanting to go queen a7 is knight f6 can be met with knight f6. We didn't want this pawn structure change.
Mm-hmm.
And after queen b4, the knight is overworked, so the knight cannot take. Pawn has to take. Queen goes to a6, avoids a trade, but can I go knight b4 here? Do you defend this? Where does the queen go to defend?
Oh, you go queen a3, I think. Because
Oh, wow.
if rook c6, I have rook c6, and the knight can't take because of the pin. So queen must take, and then queen b4. And I've saved myself.
And I have to say, white is quite happy about this exchange because without the minors, they have more of a chance of drawing this, and especially against this weak king. I can always check, queen f4, create some threats, and I think this will end in a draw.
Yeah.
Instead here, instead of knight b4, rook c7 is played, and eventually we entered, so takes. It's also possible to keep the queens on here, but yeah, went for the endgame, rook d8.
Yeah, I'm surprised that black traded queens, because I would think that your winning chances go up if queens are on the board for black, as opposed to off the board. Like maybe queen e7, just be solid somehow. Play f5 next.
Why do you think the queens
Or
increase your
okay,
chances?
maybe queen e7 is a bad move. But the reason why I think that is, what I'd really like to do is trade the rooks and then play queen and knight against queen and bishop, where maybe your king becomes a little weaker.
Mm-hmm. But he decided to go for the endgame. Maybe he thought he has good chances in the endgame. So h4 with the threat of h5, king sidesteps, the knight will eventually land here with the threat of knight f3, so king covers, rook d2. So we repeat once and we trade, and
That's how we got here.
I think two more moves were played. So
Oh,
g4
wow.
was played. g4. Oh, g4 is a brave move. Why is this move necessary? Seems like you're just weakening, and h5, but it just looks like you're giving your opponent squares. But I think, does he think he has a fortress here? Because does he want to put his king on g3? Maybe he doesn't want to allow knight to g6. Oh, but why h6? Oh, maybe, okay, g5 possibly is a threat here, but why not here?
So actually, if you play that, it's funny. If the rook being on e4 is actually really bad, because, well, if you play g5 here with white, then fg loses a piece. But king g5, f4 seems like it. Oh, it's also illegal. I was thinking f4, king f5, but yeah, this tactic just never works.
Well, that's why I wanted to go here. So you don't have king g5. I have f4. But so I think maybe he thinks he has a fortress because the knight cannot go here. But and then I can put a king on g3. But feels kind of unnecessary to put all your pawns on the light squares.
Yeah, it seems like you're asking for trouble with the bishop.
But why h6? He fixes the pawn structure. I understand this, but also taking away some squares from your own king.
On the other hand, if we manage to trade our f-pawn for white's g-pawn in a clean way, I think that h5 could end up being very weak.
So if you just took these pawns off the board?
Right, yeah.
So you need maybe put your knight on e7 or something and then push f5?
Yeah, I'd be thinking about something like that.
So then, in that case, white would need to put a bishop on d3 and always be aiming at that pawn. So, okay. So I think black will play this for a long time. Because black has nothing to lose. You have a knight. You can hop around with a knight. In this kind of position, you're actually quite happy to have a knight. This knight can go to all kinds of squares, like g5. So I think we're in for a long game here. And some games we haven't looked at, like Mishra versus Nyzhnyk. Okay, this position looks like a completely drawn endgame, I want to say. Just not enough pawns on the position.
Yeah.
If I put here and then just go back and forth, can you attack this?
So,
But even if you capture this, I don't think you can win because it's on the same diagonal.
yes, the one diagonal rule, right?
Yeah. So this game will end in a draw, and we have Gledura versus Dardha.
This is probably already ended in a draw, right?
This is well, we reach move 41, so if I go queen e3, this loses, right? Because you're in the square. That's not the square, that's the square. So white is down a pawn, but this pass pawn is running. And how do we stop this pawn? No, queen e3 wasn't played.
I also know this theoretical endgame, which nobody believes me when I say it. If white trades f pawns here, and you don't have an a pawn and your king's in the corner, a lot of ifs. But that position where black is up 2 pawns is a draw.
Yeah, I've seen this. I think it was Fabiano versus Maxime. They were playing in some tournament, and I think Fabiano had 2 pawns and he couldn't win. Somehow, eventually, he like stumbled into win. I think this was World Rapid and Blitz or World Blitz.
Was that in the Sinkfield Cup? I think that might have happened.
Sinkfield Cup.
I think I saw that in the Sinkfield Cup. I could be mistaken, but I know.
Oh
I know
yeah, it wasn't the Sinkfield Cup. It was that Najdorf, right? And then eventually ended up with these 2 pawns, and the king was in front. Eventually, he found the win. But it's so tricky because there are just so many checks. It's so difficult to calculate. I think you have to know some of these positions.
Right. The queen end games are really tough for human players to play correctly.
Let's check in this game, see if we have moves. Oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So
now
now
let's see
we
where
understand.
these pieces came from. So we left somewhere around. Now we saw all of this. So we saw this. This is the final position we saw. So let's see how we landed there. So rook takes, bishop e2. So the other rook goes on the 6th rank. Wait. Is this? Oh, for some reason I hallucinated for a sec. Okay, the knight goes back, tries to take it, says no. No, actually we did see this, right? So the knight goes back. Now he pins, and he probably took.
F6. Okay. This is how this happened. And then rook b6 takes rook f6. Okay, very nice.
Wow. Oh, this is how we got this. There is no way we could have guessed this.
Right.
So he goes queen d8, and then he says rook f8 probably win, but I don't have to. You don't have moves, and
d5 is very nice. Complete domination against the queen.
So he should have played f4 c4 somehow, so you can have the same structure, but one rank ahead.
That would be quite an imposing center. It's already overwhelming.
Oh, he did go f4. He just needs to take this pawn, bring his bishop back, and go c4. And bishop g4. Okay, this is game over. He will just be up a piece. But it's 2 in a row for Sam. He was leading the tournament at some point, or co-leading, because he did have that really nice win, that rook endgame versus Dardha. But now he's losing 2 in a row. And move 40, maybe this game is already over. A really nice domination by white.
Yeah.
Such a beautiful position.
Unfortunate for Sam losing 2 games to domination ideas. It goes to show you should study your endgames and these sorts of patterns.
And not let your opponent have all the bishops. Yeah, but at this position, I think the structure is like already looks quite dangerous.
Right. Yeah,
because
the center.
this, I mean, in some ways, maybe you can create some kind of a blockade, but again, this potential of the bishops, and if I manage bishop d3, castle e4, and white did manage all of these things, actually was quite dangerous.
So I'm going to pretend the teachings that we talk about to beginners actually isn't so bad. So the first principle we teach people is control the center. And even though white's king has moved a lot, he is definitely controlling the center and has the bishop pair. So that's why it's okay to play this way in this circumstance, and it's not
in this specific circumstance,
right.
And that's it. So tomorrow we're gonna have a game where one side has a center, but they're getting mated, and be like, well, you can get the center, but don't get mated.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I have this with my students sometimes, and they'll be like, but you know, you taught me this, or like I'm supposed to be doing this. I'm like, okay, but chess is complicated. You know, it's not like you learn one rule and then you always play by it.
I've just learned that Sam resigned in that game, and we will be getting an interview with Nodirbek.
Okay, and let us take a look at Group B in this Akshat versus Felix game. And wow, a lot has happened in this game. So it has been a complete change of the structure. So where we left off was somewhere around here. So white plays d4, and black continues with queen e6. And after queen e6, simply controlling the only open file. And this is why we didn't want to trade our bishop, because we said that the rook needs to go to e1. And after bishop f1, f4. And we see some more structural changes, and the problem for white is going to be this king is actually coming under attack. So d5 has happened, this trade, and this bishop actually came to life, which is something white was trying to avoid with this move d4. This looks quite dangerous already. g4 and h4. So because of the pin, this g3 pawn is hanging. So white decides to take, and now g3. So black is going to end up with a passed pawn on f2, but at the same time, he also compromised his king. So maybe queen f4 was a bit more accurate with the threat of g3 and not leaving white with this extra pawn. But g3 is played, move 40, so I would expect Akshat to go into a long think and figure out what to do. So of course he has to take probably king g2 and play this position, and perhaps something like this, try to exchange queens. And we do have a guest with us. We have the winner of Group A, Nodirbek Yakubboev. Congratulations on your win. That was a beautiful game, great domination. Please take us to the game.
Okay, I prepared this line, English 4 knights with e3, and queen c, bishop b4, queen c2, take, and I expected that he will play d6 here.
D6.
He had one game against So.
I see it here.
Yeah.
2018.
Okay, but he went e4, knight g5, queen e7. Here is d5 also, but it's after rook b1, it's what to say? It's just a big line. H6 is not best because cd and rook b5.
Oh, okay. So this was the whole point. And then this pawn is coming under attack.
Yeah, it's just this big line. He went queen e7, which is main line. f3, d5, take and castle, d4. I think d4 is novelty here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, bishop b2.
Bishop b2 has been played many times.
Okay, I prepared this trap. D5 looks very logical, but it's not best.
So this is your trap?
Yeah. After king f2, white's better here.
Because of your pawn structure. And this is coming. So I think your trap
I think
is
he
this,
missed
right?
I think he missed the move king f2.
Oh, okay.
Maybe rook e1. He said he missed rook e1, but what else? What else? If not rook e1,
then. Because what if e4?
E4, then bishop f5, I think.
Now I cannot do the same thing because now your rooks are connected. Okay.
Yeah.
So this was your trap. You went rook e1, and it's impossible to take.
Take and king f1.
Yeah, this was very nice.
He had to play bishop g4 after king f2.
Sorry, let me go back. Oh, here?
Yeah.
g4.
e4, take on f3, g f3, and queen h4 check, king g2, knight f4, take, and queen c1, and next queen e3. It's just white's better. Engine says that 0.50, it's about like that. Okay.
But this endgame, you would say it's very bad, right? This pawn goes to e5, this bishop is very strong.
Yeah, white is still better.
Yeah. So after king f2, he went knight f6, which...
But bishop g4 was...
the correct move.
Yeah, main line. After knight f6, I don't know how much white's better, but...
this is not a very... I don't know how strong this engine is, actually, but you're giving you a significant advantage. And especially after this. And just simply king f1.
Yeah, knight e4 was the best, I think. Because after bishop g4... Okay. bishop g4, e4. Take. He got worst version of Chigorin defense.
Your pawn structure is so nice. So did you think you're already close to winning in this position?
Yeah, I think I was close to winning.
Close to winning.
Yeah. What
So-
I want, if he plays knight e4, then bishop a3, take, h6, king g1, and next, bishop d3, e4, rook f1, looks
It looks
just
very strong. I think
very
your
strong.
moves all look very easy to play, right? Like
Yeah.
every piece has a square, like your plan is very easy, and it's not clear where black will find counterplay. And he doesn't even have a, that's what we were talking about. He didn't even have a pawn for this attack. It's just,
Yeah.
everything is just clean for you. And then you went bishop g4. So bishop f3, knight d5.
Here I was trying to not to miss some tactical resource, but okay, knight d5,
Mhm.
rook e2, knight b6, rook g2, rook is very active placed here.
Yeah, and these knights are so far away from this poor
Yeah.
king. So you went queen d7, bishop g5.
Yeah, here it's just winning, I think.
So h5. And you're playing very safe here, right? You did not. At some point, he attacked your pawn, and then you decided. When he came to attack your pawn, you
I didn't
decided
want-
no.
I didn't want to give any chances.
Right.
Yeah, rook c1.
So rook b6. And then you went back.
Yeah, bishop b5 is coming here.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
If I can. See, I want to pass the move, but I can't. So, for example, if he goes here, just bishop b5, and
No,
if
no.
you take.
He
You said
went
bishop
to,
b5. No, I was
No, no.
trying to show what you mean. Oh, he went here. Oh, you didn't. Okay, here you went rook b1.
yeah. Now rook takes b2 is coming.
Yeah, this was very nice. So you took, because we saw this on the board, we didn't have the moves and we saw it on the shot, but we couldn't figure out like how did this pawn get to h4, and we're trying to think of ways this was
Yeah.
possible for this pawn to take the queen, and we just couldn't figure out. But this is so beautiful because your rook just goes such a nice sequence. And you decided you don't need to rush
Yeah,
because
After
there's no
bishop
reason
h6, I was sure that I'm winning.
yeah, this domination is just so beautiful. And then now your bishop comes too, and now you're just b6, rook f8 at least, and you're winning. Yeah, very nice game. Such a beautiful domination. So congratulations again, and good
Thank
luck
you.
to you in the rest of your games.
Thank you very much.
And there was Nodirbek Yakubboev, who just won his game against Samuel Sevian, who suffered his second loss in a row. And we can continue looking at where we are. So we might be getting another result soon, as in this game versus Quesada Perez and Benjamin Bach. A lot of moves have happened, and now we see that black is up a piece. So let's see how we landed here. We had a lot of trades and change of positions here and imbalances. I'm going back too far. So we were here. h3, knight went to f6. So takes on b6. This is the final position we saw. The rook on c8, pawn to g4. And simply giving up a pawn. And king h5. I was actually thinking simply knight f6 to block the check. And this is a very nice configuration that doesn't allow any checks. But the idea behind king h5 is very simple. Rook c1 is check. And when we're checkmating actually with the bishop on the knight, this is a way to kind of keep the king in. So rook c1 is a huge threat, and king runs away, but unfortunately cannot go too far. And the queen doesn't have any checks. So the king on h5 surprisingly is very safe, and this king is getting mated. So I think this g4 move is very dangerous. So bishop f3 is still trying to checkmate. king is running, and rook c2. So rook c2 is threatening the queen, not like that, but like this. And again, the queen doesn't have any checks. And if I can pass the move somehow, just to show what's happening. So rook e2 is the threat. If the king moves, then rook e6 is mate. And if king f1, then king g1. This is actually a really nice mate. Rook g3 and knight f1. And
nice.
all three pieces working together to checkmate the king.
Yeah, I didn't see that. I was gonna take white's queen, but
I was also, so I was
Yeah.
checking eventually. I was like, oh wait, that's a checkmate. So in the game, after rook c2, queen went to e7 to sacrifice herself, and now knight f6. Excuse me. So if it's possible for this king to somehow take this pawn, it will be a draw, but unfortunately that's not possible. So if knight d5 in this position, so this might actually not be accurate. So here, and the king comes here. So what I don't like about this knight d5 check is because this knight and the pawn are doing a really good job of keeping this king out, because I cannot come this way to this pawn and I cannot come this way. So knight d5 kind of allows the king to get closer and now play this move with the idea of going after this pawn. So let's try to make some moves. So let's say I go king d4. So now this is a huge threat, so you have to play here. And is this a draw? You know how this might be a draw, for example? If you go king f6, let's say king d5. No. I have to draw like this. And if you go here, and this is a mutual zugzwang, because you cannot move your knight ever, I will take your pawn, and your king can never capture my pawns. And
yeah, both sides are sort of stuck.
so again, we found the most forcing moves to force a draw, but this is not necessary. So I don't think knight d5 should be played, so maybe king g4 or king g6. I don't know which one is correct, so let's try one.
King g4 was played in the game, I believe.
Okay, so let's try this one. I don't think it makes a difference, because if here, this should be a very simple win. Actually, king g4 just makes so much sense for attacking a pawn. No.
Yeah, here knight c7, and when you go take the knight, we just take your b pawn. We're in time. And yeah, obviously white's king needs to be on b2 in this position to make a draw, and we can't even draw an arrow to get there.
So king g4 was played. So d5 is not a move, as we determined. And if king d3, then this is just even easier. If you go here, I don't even have to take. I can just go king e5.
Yeah, lots of very technical endgames for the last 2 rounds. I've gotten word of 2 results. So Gleb Dudin has won his game in the B group, and so has Mikhalevski.
Oh, Mikhalevski has won a lot of games. He has a lot of decisive results. So he won 3 games. He lost yesterday, right? And he won 3 games, I believe.
Very, very fighting player. Actually, it's unclear what happened in the Dudin game, apparently. Maybe the DGT glitched.
Oh, knight d7. What a nice move. Everything is hanging. So the idea is if you take, we are up.
A lot of pawns.
Just the entire king side. Yeah, this is too many pawns. Very nice game. And in this position, as we're setting up for the interview, we left off here.
Whoa.
A lot of things happen here. So the position, I was considering queen f4. Instead, this was played. Takes, king g2 and gf. And now, I don't know, I'm a bit scared. Maybe if I move a rook on g3, maybe if I go to rook g5, although I am scared of rook e1. I don't know if I should be scared. For example, if I go here, the question is whose king is weaker, because it's opposite color bishops. So whose king will come under attack? I'm assuming this king. Can I move my king?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering as well.
Wait. Actually.
So if I play king h6 and you play rook g5, can I go rook g7?
Ah, king h6 is kind of annoying to face. So here.
My intention is not subtle. I just want to take g5 and play queen g1.
And if I play this, this is this cannot be good, because okay, here I'm just letting you get a queen. This was unfortunate. So after rook g7, I cannot take. So maybe I shouldn't go rook g5. But what can I do here? I'm wondering, can I go... this is kind of sad. But okay, if you play this...
Yeah, you probably
This is
probably
the
shouldn't
most
lose.
I cannot lose. I just
Yeah.
put a king on f1 and my bishop just...
Yeah, it's impossible to lose. Yeah.
Okay, so I will not lose this.
Instead of, so after queen d2, maybe I should try to play some other move. Although
I don't like queen d2. Queen d2 is a bit of a sad move because I'm just like, please make a draw.
queen c6 might be annoying. A bishop d5 you have.
Thanks.
And then maybe queen. I'm playing with a lot of fire trying to win, but
I'm just trying to draw.
yeah,
I'm
okay,
determined.
queen d5, yeah. That sort of puts the kibosh on a lot of my ideas.
So yeah, but maybe actually even rook h1 is a move. Is rook h1 a move? But maybe here you just go here and now
Rook
you have rook
g7
g7.
again.
Yeah, bit of a tough spot. So this is not what we're expecting in this game. With that, it will kind of get a lot of trades. That could be some kind of endgame. But we also said in that position that black's moves are very easy. Just push all these pawns. There was another game we're looking at. This was this Jason Liang game. So let's see if black managed to make some progress. Actually, I don't think many moves were played. So we left off here, right? Rook went to c8, king e2, rook b8, getting ready to push the pawn, rook c1. He grabbed the pawn, king f3. Bit of an achievement, actually. Bishop e1, and now g5. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so black's point must be if f takes g5, he wants king e5, and then he will try to collect more of white's pawns. And white's point with bishop to e1 is you can't actually take the c5 pawn because white will play the move bishop f2 and collect your rook. This would be an unfortunate series of events.
But I think here this is a serious threat. For if I pass the move and you go rook a2, how do I stop this mate? I don't think you have a way. Oh, no, you have knight c3.
Yeah.
Ah, that was disappointing. Got so excited here. Yeah, that's disappointing.
But
and then you collect this pawn too.
But yeah, actually maybe white still has chances there because after rook a2, knight c3, rook d2. If you take c5, I can play rook c2 back and try to capture your knight. And if you go to d4, I'll check you and go back.
In the game, but to avoid all of this, he went g5 with the idea of the e5. Now you don't even have this because now I just collect all your pawns on the dark squares. And white took, which makes a lot of sense. And now black, but this kind of feels like white is getting some kind of play, no? Unless this pawn is just going to queen very soon.
Yeah, Kantor puts up a lot of resistance when he's in trouble. The day before yesterday, he obviously saved a very bad position, and even yesterday, he lost, but he did put up a fight longer than we thought he was going to. It's never easy. No,
it's not easy with him. He's a very resourceful player, but I'm wondering if she will turn on our eval. Oh, our eval is not impressed at all because now. The problem is if the bishop moves, the knights come in. But who did this? Excuse me. Who did this pawn trade favor? Feels like this pawn should have fell for free, right? This f4 pawn. So maybe there's some chances of counterplay for white here.
Yeah, I think even though objectively black is still losing, the trend is in white's favor. I think that black was a lot happier 1 or 2 moves ago as opposed to the current position.
And excuse me. What other games do we have here? This game.
Kirk was lost before, right? So he saved himself?
Yeah,
believe.
before the show, right, was at this position exactly.
Oh,
This
yeah.
looks quite bad with the two bishops. So knight d4, rook d4. This is what we were analyzing. E3,
Mhm.
queen e3, rook d1 only move, bishop g4. Ah, and he went into some kind of an opposite color bishop position, and his opponent took immediately. So maybe there is no rush to take, or there is a rush to take because this bishop is hanging. So let's say check. And kind of have to, right? Because this bishop doesn't... I mean, I don't think it makes a difference of doing it this way.
Yeah, I don't know. Can we try? Okay, I'm gonna maybe every move I'm about to play is a mistake, but can I try to play something like bishop to d1 here, and then if you take on c4, my idea was to play. Oh, you're even threatening bishop g6. Never mind. My idea was not good.
Oh, yeah, bishop g6. What was your
Yeah.
idea?
My idea was to play like
Bishop
h5 and just try to play with domination, but bishop g6, and
Yeah.
now I'm getting checkmated.
That's unfortunate. So maybe this was... So this was a very resourceful idea by Kirk, giving up this exchange. And now maybe key is to hang on to this pawn. Because the reason I want to hang on to this pawn is because if I eventually win b2, then this will be a very strong fast pawn. But I think this is not an easy position to play because a lot of resources for white. At some point, if I go e6, this king will become very loose. So he took bishop e4, now e6 is coming, and e6 is actually a very serious threat. And queen d3, why not e6? Because e6 we're not threatening anything, I guess, in a sense that it's not mate or anything.
Maybe b5 is strong here because I have queen e2. No.
Can I?
Yeah, you can probably just take. Yeah. I was hoping queen e2 would be some sort of cleverness,
So I
but
have to go here, right? Everything else mate. Well,
yeah, but giving perpetual was
Yes.
not my dream.
so in the game, the queen went to d3, kind of forcing a trade, and f6, and then now it's down a pawn with opposite color bishops.
Hmm. Yeah, probably. Yeah, Kirk is not going to lose this game, so
Wait. So basically the claim is I'm just gonna have this set up, and for you to make progress, you have to give up a pawn.
Mhm.
Because if you play, well, g5, I can also do this, and I got a passed pawn. I put a pawn on g4, so at least a bishop or a king has to be always there protecting it.
Right.
And if you ever yourself go b5, I will simply take on c6.
So I do think this endgame is more dangerous than it appears because black does have the right colored bishop. So you won't have the ability, as you would in most of these opposite color bishop endgames, to just sacrifice your bishop for the queenside pawn, because black would win that endgame.
Wait, if I give up my, well, you have
Right.
the right bishop for this one, but if I
Right. Oh, you have the wrong
sacrifice-
bishop for the h pawn.
You cannot have the
Yeah,
wrong
yeah.
bishop for both sides.
Yeah.
But okay, but this is like very interesting, you know, because I'm attacking g3, so your king cannot move. So I don't know if I go g4, then you take. The engine doesn't care, but I would be a bit scared. So maybe I can play bishop d3, force you to do this.
Yeah, then bishop-
And
Bishop c2.
now your king is coming. So what I
Oh,
want to
man.
do is not what I achieved. So how do I want to make a draw here? So maybe I need to start pushing my own pawns.
Yeah,
And
I
I
mean,
want to go
white isn't-
g4, g5.
White is an even down material here. The only reason why white is worse is because black has 2 passed pawns and white currently has only 1. Yeah, now g5, whoa. The computer's really going crazy there. I was gonna say, why is white worse? And then it went down, and okay, then went back up. Yeah, this would be unfortunate.
So then, but everything we did was pretty logical, no? So we went what? King c5, so I should not allow this somehow. So what should I do? Oh, I need to put a king on here.
Yeah,
So
king
here you
e2
go
is a nice
here.
tempo.
If I go here, can I hold a fortress here?
I think I was gonna say I think so, and then yeah.
And then
I guess he
bishop
gets
b5. I don't think I'm holding fortress. I think I'm in Zugzwang actually.
Yeah,
Because
king
if you
c2, king
move
c4.
this way, I go this way. Okay, I guess I don't go that way.
this
do I
this
know?
endgame is just very hard to play.
Wait, if I go... But why not? This is probably some kind of a, like a move by move. It's
Right.
like every tempo counts and somehow white saves. Just play some...
Every position looks like a study.
Yeah. But king b5 is so normal. But maybe I can always Zugzwang you, and maybe the point is the bishop needs to be far away, so you don't have a tempo. Like if I play bishop g7, and then you go here, and I can, like, this looks a bit silly, and then you get Zugzwang, and my bishop is always far away.
Right. So king e4 doesn't come with tempo, and then now king b5 is a stronger version.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's weird that it makes such a big difference.
So our idea was takes, h5, and if a4, I can go here again, and if you come with the king, I go here. Okay, I don't go there. Is it easier for you to block my pawns? Oh, I'm also starting to realize that maybe black shouldn't take. Because
that makes
taking,
sense.
I think if you go here, maybe I have king g4, right? And now actually my pass pawn becomes dangerous. But if you don't take, it's as you mentioned, this one diagonal rule. So from one diagonal, I can stop both pawns. So I can actually play after g5, maybe just king c4.
So
Which
yeah.
is also a mistake. Everything I play is a mistake.
So Kirk objectively is holding according to the engine right now, but definitely he's not out of the woods, I think. Practically speaking, he's going to need to make a lot of precise moves in order to hold the draw. Do you want to take a look around before we sign off?
Yeah, so we left off in this position, rook d5. I think this will be, what will this be? Yeah, I mean, this position looks a bit scary for both sides, I have to say, but our eval, it's making my thinking a bit biased, but kind of scary for both kings. So in this game, I think black will eventually win. I think the position is just too good, so eventually this pawn will start moving too, and with the passed pawns, I think black will convert, so it would be 2 in a row for Jason if he converts this.
I've just heard breaking news that Bach has actually defeated Quesada Perez, and we will be trying to get an interview with him.
Yes, and this is a result we're expecting, right? So what happened after king g4, I think that's where the game ended.
Mm-hmm.
And we're expecting this result. So this is 2 in a row for Bach, who defeated Sam Sevian yesterday and winning this game with black against Quesada Perez. And I think this was also probably very good preparation by him, because he played this line that was played before, and yesterday he also had very deep preparation. And if we get him, we'll also try to take a look at the game from yesterday. And let's see what else do we have in Group A. We had this Christopher Yu versus Daro game. So Christopher Yu is fighting with his fortress. So is 92 a threat? Every time I try to pass a move, I realize I can't. I was like, oh, let me pass a move with this move, but I can't. Okay, so rook e3 has to be played.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the idea? But I think this position has been like they were making moves for a while already, because we saw the structure for several moves already. And I think this game has to be over. We've had this position for a long time. Mishra versus Nyzhnyk. So Christopher versus Dara with Sa, Benjamin Bog winning, Sam losing 2 in a row. And this position also will left this
some time ago, right?
yeah, but there has to be some kind of a perpetual, right? I don't think white is...
Right.
Yeah, white is repeating already.
Yeah.
So queen f1 threatening mate. So queen c3 was played, and I don't think white will go for any kind of adventures here, so I expect a perpetual in this game.
Yeah, I think you only draw when it's H and G, not when it's F and G. And also, you never want to go for that endgame, even if it is a draw.
No, because we're just playing for two results. You either magically hold or you just lose. So that's everything in Group A, and in Group B we're looking at so Mikhalevski won with that disposition, and Luka versus Gleb Dudin. This looks very drawish with opposite color bishops. The weaknesses in the position for black should be very holdable. This pawn is just holdable, and black can just challenge this rook and always hold this pawn. So this also should be a draw. The interesting game is this one with the opposite color bishops, but with this passed pawns, and also this one, Gergely Kantor versus Jason Liang, where we expect black to eventually convert. And Akshat Chandra, he did play rook d5. Black hasn't responded. You're telling me king h6, and we're doing something silly here. Apparently, that's a huge mistake.
Wow.
So what did we say?
We said rook g7, but
And then
I
I
see.
went my set queen d2.
Yeah, but I see now that you're queen c6. Yeah, would be
Oh, we missed.
nice
Oh,
way,
because you
yeah.
don't have a way to block. Why can't I block this way?
because rook g7, right? Yeah.
And then the bishop is overworked, because if I go this way, you can either take or just
Even
queen,
f1,
right?
yeah. Or f1 knight even. Well, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, no, we have a queen. Oh, very unfortunate.
F1 knight is like forced checkmate, I think.
So king h6 is actually annoying. So what do I play here? So rook g7 is actually a move you want to play, so what should I do? Cannot do something like this.
Right, that would be devastating for white.
So what to do? What to do with white? So I have to say, rook d5 is a really nice check, a nice move, because we had this idea of blocking this check from the 5th rank and giving up this pawn.
Maybe we can start with queen d2. Is that silly? Queen d2 with the idea that if you go rook g7, now I play rook g5. Did
Apparently.
not like that move very very much. I understand why. I held my bishop. Queen g6, queen e4, queen c4 takes.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate mistake to make.
Yeah, this is. So white has to find a move. So what can we do? So rook g7. So rook g7 is a huge threat. So white has to do what? White has to try to exchange. No, but you have rook g7. And where does my king go? I cannot go to f1. Oh, this is actually just mate. So I have to go. I cannot go on the h. This looks very bad. Oh no, actually this looks okay. So I cannot go to h2 because I get mated. So I have to go somewhere with the king. I have to go to either f3 or h3. But this looks a bit scary. But if we can force a queen trade, so for example, now I have rook f6 check. So for example, if rook g1, then rook f6 threatening this bishop forces an exchange. King comes back. And very simple draw, just not enough pieces left on the board. So queen f5 is actually a nice resource, and actually maybe close to an only move, because this position looks quite dangerous for white. And king h6 is on the board, and Akshat has to find a move to not be in trouble, because as we saw, there are some resources with queen c6. Rook d7 is a threat, and maybe not such a pleasant position. And our other game with the opposite color bishops, h5 was played. And actually white did not spend time taking on b5, he played h5 immediately. So the idea is, if takes, then he's not afraid about this extra pawn, because he thinks the bishop will be able to stop all these pawns. If the bishop goes, for example, if something like g4, bishop comes to b1, and from b1, as Julian mentions, the one diagonal rule, the bishop from a2 will stop all the passed pawns. So maybe taking on b5, as we were considering, was not as necessary, and maybe this is actually simpler. And if b4, then the bishop can come back. And here we can actually build a fortress, I believe, because king d6. If I go here, I think even this should be a fortress. f5, and there is no way for black to make progress anymore because this king b5 move that we're looking at before is no longer available because of this pawn on a4. So taking this b5, then that means was not necessary. It's the only move we considered, but h5 with the idea of g4, king e4, just creating counterplay by creating a pass pawn is white's idea, and now black is going to decide if he pushes or he takes on a4. And we do have a guest with us, Benjamin Bog, who won 2 games in a row. Congratulations, really nice wins. And we actually wanted to take a look at both of your games because it looks like they both were deep preparations. So let's start with today's game. So let's go through this game and you can tell us about your preparation and where it stopped.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. And yeah, so I played Yasser Quesada. So he played the Ruy Lopez, which is kind of what I expected, and I hope to surprise him a little bit with the move a6 because normally I'm more of a Berlin player, but I had already played the move a6 against Dariusz in the tournament, but his move after bishop a4, knight f6, d3 took me a little bit by surprise, and here I played the move bishop to c5.
So you think this is a sign he wasn't expecting you to play a6 and he didn't want to play up on Spanish?
He still played kind of quickly, and also the move d3, he's really limiting my options. Because, for example, I can't play the open Ruy Lopez anymore, and like all those types of things. So I played bishop to c5. I thought it's clever to delay b5 for one move, and he cancelled. I played b5, bishop d3, d6. And the funny thing is, I actually had this against Dariusz in round 3 via different move order. So he played a4. I figured like, okay, rook b8 is the most logical move. He took on b5, takes. And in this position, Dariusz played the move bishop to e3, and after that I was quickly fine. But I was wondering, okay, what do I do after the move c3? Because here I have two options. I can either play the move h6, stopping bishop to g5 altogether. But then I thought, okay, what if he goes d4, and he goes into the main lines, and I have this extra move h6, but I don't know how valuable it is. I mean, I guess black should be doing quite fine here, because I guess it will come in useful somehow. And it's actually a little bit silly because after I played, like I was wondering about this during the game with Dariusz, and after the game, I didn't check it, well, whereas I should have, but I decided just to castle. I figured like, okay, he can go bishop to g5, but I shouldn't be too worried about it. I go h6, bishop h4, and here, yeah, I didn't consider knight takes g5 very seriously.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it very rarely works, but I think here, he's got a good version compared to other like Italian games, or because my knight on c6 is unprotected, so he can always go bishop d5, and it will be very unpleasant to deal with.
But this is a bit of a concession for him already, right? Putting a bishop here.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought if he goes bishop g3, I have to, yeah, bishop g4 is an option. He plays h3, I guess. Maybe bishop h5. Yeah, maybe black just has a very comfortable game here. I'd have to check. I was wondering, like after bishop g3, if I can go g4. If he goes knight h4, I go knight h5, and I think black is doing pretty comfortable. But the question is always like, what happens after bishop h4? Yes.
It's a question if actually having a pawn on h6 is helpful too, because you don't have
right.
h6.
Yeah. Like this is a thing in the Italian game. Take, king g7. I guess also like bishop d5, and these positions are never easy. Right, or maybe bishop d7, and probably he will do the same plan with b4 and knight e3. Yeah, and yeah, he's going knight c2 to e3, and it's very difficult for me to get out of the pin. So
maybe we have time for this.
Well, we don't, because if we go knight e6, then he has knight f5.
Ah.
Yeah, and I mean, if I go c6, bishop b3, like it's very difficult how to get out of this. And in the meantime, he's gonna make moves like rook a6, maybe king h1, and try to maybe somehow get a 4 in. And yeah, it looks practically very difficult for black. So I figure like, okay, if he goes...
You need to go h5, rook h right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really interesting.
Right, so I figured, okay, if he goes bishop g3, I'll figure out what to do. And then he played knight takes g5 instantly. And I thought to myself, like, oh, am I getting into some preparation via a different move order? But okay, so I have to take, he takes. And yeah, I played king d7. I was wondering for a second later, like, could I have played the move bishop to g4?
Yeah, I think tactically it works out, but I don't know if this was. I think the
Yeah,
queen e1.
queen e1.
Can,
And maybe, because now I might have, well, bishop e6, he probably still goes bishop d5, so it doesn't change a whole lot. Yeah, bishop d5 and I'm just lost. But here, maybe after queen e1, yeah, it's always so difficult. I guess I still have to go king g7. He goes bishop bishop d5? King h1, I guess, yeah? And yeah, 4 is coming very, yeah, and now here the difference is in the game, if he goes, let's say, instead of queen f3, so after king g7, queen f3.
yeah,
because
now you don't have time, right?
Yeah, so let's say he goes king h1 instead of queen f3, then I can play rook h8. And now f4, there's knight g4.
Yeah, this is a nice trick, because you have mate.
Yep. All right, so he played queen f3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I figured, and here for a moment I was considering queen e7, but I thought after queen e7 he goes, let's say, let's say bishop d, no, or maybe queen g3 right away. I thought, yeah, queen g3 right away, and I didn't quite see a move, because if I play, let's say rook h8 here, he takes on f6 and he goes king h1, and I thought it's just, it looked, I mean, rook h6 and rook g6.
Oh wow,
that's very, but it's saying taken, yeah, apparently taken h4 is winning.
Oh yeah, just mate on g5.
Yeah.
This is a very funny configuration of checkmate.
Yeah, but I did figure like my king on f6 can get stuck and then I'll be in trouble. So I played rook h8, it looked logical. Then he played bishop d5. Okay, I have to go bishop d7. He played b4, bishop b6, knight a3. And here I thought it's unpleasant if I just sit. Like I played queen e7, knight c2.
So all of this actually was played before, which is why I thought maybe this was preparation.
Well, I guess it was preparation by him. Like I didn't know. So I feel like, okay, let's say I go knight d8. It looks very unpleasant because he's gonna go knight e3.
You just don't have moves.
And I don't have moves, and I'm just waiting for something bad to happen. Like yeah.
It's very likely, right? Something bad will happen. Actually, maybe king h1 or there's something on the a file.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps I have to play something like rook h6 to. I didn't even see a rook h6, so I was wondering like how do I even break loose? But this. It feels like white is just better. I mean, my king is still weak. He's got 2 pawns for the 2 minor pieces. So I played knight takes d5. I thought at least practically this could change the momentum of the game because now my moves are a lot easier.
So what did you think about this position? How did you evaluate it?
Difficult to say. I thought that maybe objectively he should still be better, but I did think that it was it became a lot easier for me to play now. Now I'm going to go rook h6, bring the other rook, and I start jumping around with the knight, and it's all of a sudden not that easy for him. So I played d4, which I think is still fine. I played rook h6.
So we're looking at d5 here, which I think is a difficult move to play, but it kind of makes your knight a bit funny. Because if you go to d8, then at least we can claim that the rook cannot go here and your knight is bad, and maybe at some point...
Well, I did think that perhaps at some point he should give back the exchange on b6. But yeah, I thought knight d8 and then f6, knight f7. And I didn't think it was so bad, to be honest.
I think we're trying something like this, and then we're trying to take, and since you have everything on the 7 rank, just to play with tempi.
Yeah, I guess it's a very effective plan to use the a file to either like give up the rook for the bishop or maybe to trade off one pair of rooks.
Right.
Because I think if white trades off one pair of rooks, it's although maybe here I'm still fine, but yeah, the taking on b6 looks very strong. I didn't see that. Unfortunately, neither did he. So he played queen g3. Okay,
which is just a waste of a tempo.
Yeah.
Or maybe he thought the rook on h file is dangerous, so he
queen e3. And here I was also considering the move f5, but it was difficult to figure out what's going on. Like I thought maybe here he goes rook a6 anyway. Yeah, it's all very, very complicated.
Yeah.
But I thought rook h8 is okay because at least now I threaten, or sorry, what I played in the game instead. Rook h8 after queen e3.
Right.
Because now I threaten bishop h3. And so he played f4. And okay, I took on d4. And yeah, now it's all becoming very loose for him. So he took with the knight, which is, yeah, I didn't even see it was a move. I thought initially if he takes with the knight, I go rook h3 and it just collapses right away. But I missed that he has the move g3.
Oh, okay.
Because if he moves the queen, I take on c3 and he just loses right away. But
oh, yeah, that's nice.
yeah. So I thought knight takes d4 was actually a clever move, but it turned out to be a big mistake. If he would take with the pawn, I was going to play f5 anyway, because I have to stop f5 from him, and now I get some squares from my pieces in the center. And probably he again has to go for something like rook a6, because my bishop on b6 will always be super strong. But I thought, okay, I take an e4,
And
takes.
This is similar to what happened in the game, right? No, I don't have a 5.
Yeah, I thought like what he did was actually clever, because the d5. I mean, maybe, yeah.
I don't have checks. This is so annoying.
Yeah, like black's king is pretty safe. Like I have a lot of pieces around. Knight of 6.
And then here, I'm trying not to blunder a queen.
Yeah, I mean maybe if white plays really well, it's still okay. But black's moves are a lot easier. So he took with the knight.
It's just interesting because it feels like this knight is very bad, but
Yeah,
once
so
we trade this knight, it's just so much easier for you.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to trade off the knights. And I guess the real problem is just the move that he missed. So, because normally it makes sense to trade off some pieces when you have the queen versus the pieces, because then the queen becomes stronger. But yeah, he just missed this line, so I played f5, rook a6, and now I think he completely overlooked bishop c6. And the point is that if he takes on b6, I take an e4, and he's just busted.
Yeah.
So I think what
and then the idea is you're just dominating.
Well, the thing is, like, I don't have to recapture on b6 right away, because if I recapture on b6, he goes d5, and then he's doing pretty, like on the last move. No, instead of bishop takes e4, because bishop takes e4, like I threatened to take on b. Yeah, if I can take, then d5 is doing well. But yeah, I have this little intermezzo bishop takes e4, and I threatened pretty much checkmate on g2. So then he went rook f3, which I thought was a clever try to at least trade off the pair of rooks. So here I was also considering pawn takes e4, but the lines get very messy. I thought he goes like rook takes b6, and if I take with the pawn.
Okay, so here you cannot take that hand.
Yep.
So you
So
have
we
to
take. I thought maybe f5, and I have rook g2, but after rook g2, maybe even like king f1, and it all get. I mean, I don't know if this works. Maybe this is not good, but it all gets super messy, and I was getting low on time, and I figured like, okay, with bishop takes e4, at least like keep it somewhat more.
Take and.
Yeah, even all of this is all a mess. Yeah, like.
On the wrong square. Okay.
So I think what I did was correct. I took with the bishop. He played rook g3, trading off a pair of rooks. I played knight d5, take, queen d2. And I thought here rook h4 was a good move, because I take the pawn on f4, which is very awkward to defend. Because if he goes g3, I thought I was going to go rook h3, and I don't see what he's going to do against knight f6 to g4. And pretty much any endgame is always winning for me. So at some point he has to go for some sort of rook takes b6 and hope for some counterplay.
So he went immediately.
So I took the pawn. I don't know if it's correct, but yeah, I thought okay, like I want to like yeah, I can take with the knight, but my knight often wants to head back to d5 anyway. But I guess it makes sense to keep the structure intact, because after cb everything gets kind of weak. But yeah, perhaps this was better, and I can head to c4. So I took with the pawn.
But you just have such domination with all your pieces, and then you went back with the rook. That's very nice.
Rook d8. Knight of 6. I figure like, okay, I can give up the b pawns, but I want to hang on to the d pawn as long as possible, because if he takes that one, then he's starting to create real threats. So he took rook c8, and then g4 I think was just a losing move, but it's already very difficult. Because here, after knight takes g4, he's all of a sudden in a mating net, and the nice thing is that he doesn't have any checks.
Yeah, your king is still safe on h5, which is really funny. Yeah, and then we saw the rest of the game, which was you just win, and of course king g4, you're not wasting time with knight d5, and very straight. Actually, we didn't see the end of the game. Yeah,
of course the critical line was, instead of, let's say, like after king f5, so king g4 d5, king f5, if he goes king d4, but I go knight d7, and there's no way for him to break through, because if he goes d6, I go king e6, and let's say he goes king e3 back, or like after knight d7. So king e3 here, then I just go king f6, king e7, king d6, and then knight f6, and I round up, like all his pawns are just stuck. So when I saw that, I knew the win was in my pocket.
Yeah. This is you're just keeping the king out, which is this pawn structure, and the knight was quite helpful for you. So king d4, and we saw another version of this in the game.
Yep.
That you just give this up and can't take. And actually, we really wanted to take a look at your game yesterday, because That one was, let me find it very quickly. So that was round 5 and some Sevian. So this one had to be all preparation, right? Because he had a game from last year's American Cup.
Yeah, so he had that game against Ray Robson, and I had prepared it all the way. So yeah, f5, king e3, e5. This was all the game that he had against Ray, and right, or was king e3 was not a new move yet, right?
So the way I have to do it.
Yeah. So
e5, d3, and b5. That was the game.
Right. So g4 was a novelty. And the point is, he can't really take on g4 because if he takes, I go king e4, and this becomes very dangerous. I go king d5, and he can't stop my king from getting in. So g6 is correct. I take, and I play f4. And maybe black can hold his endgame, but it's always super unpleasant. For example, I mean, he can't play e4 really, because then I go king d4, my king marches in again. So he played knight e6, which was the first new move to me. And
so what had you analyzed here?
So I had looked at king f7, and then I take on e5 again. He takes with the knight, and yeah, something like king f4. White is better, and it's always kind of unpleasant for black. But with perfect play, black should hold. But I thought, okay, I've no risk here. I can just push for the win. And yeah, he also had a long game the day before against Dariusz, so I figured like, okay, if I can. It won't be unpleasant again for him to defend. So he played knight e6, which was the first new move for me. So I figured, okay, I have to take on e5. It's the only move. He takes, and here I was considering 2 moves. So I was looking at knight d4, but I also thought I can play maybe h3 first. But the drawback of h3, yeah, there's some knight g4, but the drawback of h3 is that now he goes b5. And if I go knight d4, he goes knight c4 check, king d3, knight e5, and king c3. If I go king c3, he has b4.
Well, that's a big drawback, yeah.
Yeah. So with b5, he places the pawn on the right square, and I also can't go knight d4 anymore. So then the question becomes, okay, how do I make progress? So I figured knight d4 is the best move, and maybe incredibly, the move f4 might already be losing. I had a look yesterday. Maybe he has to go knight g4, but it's all super unpleasant. I go king d3. Let's say he takes on d4, I recapture, knight takes h2. I figured at the very least I have like king e5, or maybe I can go after the b6 pawn again.
I think this is already lost for him too. Yeah. I believe.
So
I think this position is already very bad for him.
Yeah. So he played f4, okay, king e4 only move, he takes, I take, he goes f3 only move, okay, I have to take. And here I think king d5 and king c4 are pretty much the same thing. Now he has to take on h2 because otherwise maybe I just keep this pawn on the board. And so, yeah, here I figured, okay, I just have to go after the pawn with the king. And here, initially I thought king f7 was a mistake. So I thought maybe he had to go knight f3, I take on b6, and he has to try to stop my a pawn somehow. So maybe knight d4, with the idea that if I go a4, he has knight b3. And it's very difficult to get rid of that knight, and I think it's just a draw.
So you have to start dominating this knight.
Right, so I looked at bishop e3, then I thought, okay, he goes knight c2, and I thought, okay, bishop c5, but then I wasn't quite sure what to do after knight a1, because now again, if I go a4, he goes knight b3, so it's kind of crazy. But maybe I still win with something like bishop d4, knight c2, and
so it's actually interesting. It says there because knight c2, bishop c3,
but then also knight a3,
and probably king c5.
But then it's taking too much time, and he can bring the king, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I have this table base, but it's not being very helpful, I have to say. So knight a1?
Yeah, knight a1, maybe bishop d4.
Bishop a3, what a move. But didn't...
Knight c2 and bishop b2. And yeah, the great thing is, like, it always just takes me one move to stop his pawn. And in the meantime, his knight is always going to jump around. And the funny thing is, like in many of these positions, like let's say he can go for that rotation, right, with the knight. Like very often you go like, let's say knight e7, c8, d6 to b5. But the thing is, let's say I have my bishop on h2, then I stop the pawn and I cut the d6 square. So those endgames are always lost.
So did you think here you already, when you reached this position, did you think you're winning here?
I wasn't 100% sure. I thought his best try was knight f3, and then he played king f7. I thought I should be winning, but okay, so I have to take on b6, it goes king e6. And here I was calculating for the longest time, but fortunately I had an hour, and I thought initially it was a draw. And I was looking like, okay, maybe I have to play something like bishop f4 first, But okay, he goes like knight g4 or maybe knight
knight
f3. And yeah, the drawback is like if I don't push my pawn right away, I might give him extra options. Like
So
here, yeah, a4,
what
maybe he
happens
just
here?
goes king d7. Yeah, he goes king d7, let's say a5, and then knight d4. a6, knight c6. And I don't see a single Zugzwang here.
But what happens if you just wait?
But he just, let's say, goes h5.
So when we make all these moves, eventually.
But the thing is, he always has knight e7.
That's
Right.
the problem.
And if I go king b7, he has knight d8 or knight a5, so there's just no Zugzwang. Like, I think without the h-pawn, I can go king b7 and bishop c7. But now he just pushes the pawn h3, and if I go bishop c7, he goes knight a5, and if I take, then h2. So there's just no Zugzwang here. So yeah, I was thinking for the longest time here, and then all of a sudden I saw this line, so a4, king d7, a5, king c8, bishop f4, and I figured like, okay, he has to go knight g4, because if he goes knight f3, I go a6, and he always has to try to check me on the d5 square. Like let's say he goes knight d2 here, I go a6 and knight c4, king a6, and he runs out of checks. So knight g4 is the only move, a6, and here I was thinking like, okay, if he goes knight f6, I was very happy to see king c6, and I thought like, okay, I'm winning. But then I saw this move knight e3, and I was like, what do I do? Because obviously I cannot, so knight e3 is an easy move to miss from afar because it looks impossible, but of course I can never take the knight because then he goes into the corner. And the thing is I cannot play a7 but because then he goes knight d5, and he keeps checking me, he really needs the b4 square.
Yeah, the whole idea is this.
Yeah.
It's just a draw.
And then I figured like, okay, if I can, yeah, at some point, I thought it's just a draw because I thought, okay, he can go to f5 and he can go to e7, and very often it's a clever idea to put my bishop on d6, right? But I thought if I put my bishop on d6, he goes knight f5, attacks my bishop, I have to move it again, and then he goes to e7. But then I saw, okay, if he goes with my bishop on d6, if he goes knight f5, I can go king b6, and if he takes a7, so then I had this idea of this Zugzwang. So I played king c6, knight f5, bishop d6, knight e7, so obviously I cannot take king c5.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is basically the first Zugzwang. He cannot move his knight because if he goes knight f5, I go king b6, and I go, yeah, he takes a7 and knight c4 and king a6, and it all just works out. So he has to start pushing the h-pawn, and yeah, it's really nice that my bishop is covering the h2 square. So I played bishop h2.
This is like a Kasparian study.
Yeah, it's really incredible. It feels like my game was a study.
Yeah.
Like after f4, you have to basically see this whole idea. So yeah, bishop g3, knight e7, and again, when his knight goes to e7, I go bishop d6.
Yeah, when we got to this first position with the pawn on h7, we figured you already saw the Zugzwang, and you're just gonna keep repeating until his pawn is on h3 and he runs out of moves, because it feels like you already figured out the configuration.
Here I had figured it out, yeah. So h4, I move, and then, yeah, the important thing is bishop f4, not to go bishop h2, because then he goes knight g3. So he waits, bishop d6 again, I wait, bishop f4, knight e3. And also with the knight on e3, I go bishop to d6 and knight c2. And yeah, king b5 was the last important move to see, because if I go king c6, he goes h2. Or no, wait, sorry, or knight b4, both moves.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
Oof.
And now I even lose. And if I go king b6, let's say, after then he goes h2, and it's also a draw, because I have to take, and he goes knight b4. And he keeps checking me.
Idea.
Yeah.
And here he actually also has this move.
Well, this I don't think so,
Maybe
because
this is unnecessary though.
yeah, because I go like bishop d6 and then I walk my king over to a6.
Right. Okay, that is unnecessary. But okay, yeah, we can just keep checking.
Yep. But yeah, king b5 I thought was like the last final touch, and now knight e3, he goes king c6, h2, he gives up the pawn.
So it's the same position,
Yeah,
but you want
bishop
the
d6.
pawn.
Yeah, and here after king c5 we finally have the ultimate Zugzwang. He cannot make a move because after knight f5, king b6 takes a7, knight c4, king a6. I just get the queen, and the rest was all pretty easy. So yeah, it was a very satisfying victory. Like I never thought I would play like. Well, first of all, I think it was just a perfect game, and second of all, I think I pretty much created a study.
Yeah, that was a really beautiful game. We're watching it. I mean, of course, we have this database that tells us the results, so it's easier for us. But it was really nice configuration. And we're actually wondering if because you didn't think until move, I don't know, like 30 something, like around here, this was your first thing. So we thought this was all preparation.
Oh, yes, so 94 was my first thing.
Okay.
Because 96 was a new move for me. And okay, so 96, I thought for 2 minutes, but I feel like f-takes c5 is the only move. And here, of course, I had to think. And I, of course, like after knight takes c5, I cannot calculate all the variations till the end. But of course, I saw this line, like he takes the pawn on h2, I go after the pawn on b6. And it all looks unpleasant. Like it's almost impossible to calculate it to the win. And I think Sam told me during the game that, I don't know when, like the moment he played knight, I think when he played knight takes h2, he might have still thought it was a draw. But he was thinking for a long time about the move king f7. And yes, he played all of this quickly because he has to take. Yeah, so it takes an h2, king c6. And I think here he thought for a while, he thought for a while about king f7. And I think also about the moves king e6. And he told me after the game that he already realized it was lost. Because, yeah, of course with black you're super worried. So of course he's trying to find the best moves for me. But yeah, already he didn't see a defense. And yeah, he also thought like, okay, like I have an hour to figure it out. So eventually it took me a long time, but eventually I saw, hey, maybe I can put him in Zugzwang like this.
Yeah, this was an amazing game. We didn't see it until the very end. We just saw when we figured you're going to be winning. So congratulations on both of your victories.
Thank you.
Very, must feel good to win this game yesterday like this. And today's game was also fascinating, that imbalance of queen versus two. So congratulations and good luck in the rest of your games. And thank you to Benjamin for this interview. And we will take a look at the standings, as we do have a lot of results coming in. So let's start with Group A, where Benjamin actually takes the lead, half a point ahead of a pack of players: Illia Nyzhnyk, Benjamin Gledura, and Daniel Dardha. And Dariusz and Christopher, you are still playing. And we expect that game to end in a draw. So actually, if that happens, we will have a three-way tie. And in Group B, we have Jason Liang, who won his game with 4 points, leading the tournament. And he's half a point ahead of Viktor Mikhalevski, who also won his game, and as well as Felix and Akshat Chandra, who are playing each other. So it's possible that both Felix and Akshat will join Jason in the lead for first place.
So that was a very educational interview with Benjamin Bach. It was very gracious of him to come in and share his thoughts about both of his games.
Yeah, he seemed to be in a really good mood, winning 2 games in a row. So I think we got him on the best day possible. So it was really nice to hear his thoughts about this game yesterday and today's game of that very fascinating queen versus 3 pieces. And of course, yesterday's study like game, which I think is going to be one of his best games probably in his collection. Will go down in history.
Oh yeah, for sure. Be sure to join us tomorrow at Wednesday. There will be a event with Varakovian on Bobby Fischer at the World Chess Hall of Fame. So be sure to check that out on the World Chess Hall of Fame's YouTube channel. So join us tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. We will have more, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. We will have more coverage of the 2023 Spring Chess Classic. Oh my God.
This has been a presentation of the St. Louis Chess Club. Any reproduction or distribution of this content without the express written consent of the St. Louis Chess Club is prohibited.